Okay, let me know when we're ready to roll. Okay, let me get this going. Hey everyone, welcome. So we're going to be talking a lot today about piercing the perimeter, what the attackers do, how they will go after the network. There's a lot of people who have a slightly flawed understanding of how attackers do what they do. They think that they're almost these mythical people that can just craft special packets, fire them out across the internet, and get remote shell into your system. And I'm sure those people exist, but that's not how most penetration tests work. That's not how most attacks work. And what I want to do with the limited time that I have is kind of peel back some of the veil of mystery that happens during attacks, and also give you some tools and techniques so that you can attack yourself. And we'll go into why you need to do that. So a little bit about myself. I work at Black Hills Information Security. We're a very small security team based out of Black Hills, South Dakota. I work here in Central Ohio, though, from remote. We have shirts, so after the talk, if you guys want some swag, come on up. Sorry, Internet. We'll figure out something one day to like fax you shirts, but until then, just see us at a conference. And I will have books, so at different spots I'm going to be asking the crowd for some stuff, and I'll be handing these out too. I teach for SANS, which is a very nice organization. We do a lot of training and research on how things work and how attacks go, and I'm very passionate about InfoSec, and I hope you are too. I hope you have a little bit of a spark about this, and maybe I can pour a little gasoline on your fire and get you real excited about this stuff. If you want to contact me after this talk, like you are feeling shy or we just run out of time, feel free to contact me. That's my Twitter handle, Better Safety Net, and those are my work email address and my personal email address. I'll do what I can to respond to them as quickly as I can, and if you didn't get these written down, don't worry, I'll have them up again toward the end of the presentation. Now, a couple disclaimers. This talk, we're going to be showing you real tools, real techniques that the bad guys actually use, because you need to know what the bad guys are really using. One of the things that makes me really sad is the defenders. The blue team will oftentimes be, sitting at their consoles, and they'll see an alert pop up, and you ask them, hey, what does this alert mean? And they're like, the attack happened. And you're like, whoa, no, that's cool, but what was that attack? And they don't have any idea. It's all theory. They don't understand what it feels like to launch this attack. They don't know what it feels like to send those packets downstream. And the chances that they're going to be able to tune the tool is fairly low because they don't know what they're looking for. And so there's a large chunk of our industry where people are just beholden entirely to the vendors, and they don't understand how their tool works. There's a term for that in hacker culture, and that term is script kiddie. There's a lot of times where we're doing script kiddie defense. We need to break out of that mindset. We need to understand what normal is on our networks. We need to understand how an attack looks and feels, so break out beyond the norm. Red teaming is great. Lord knows we do a lot of that at Black Hills. That's not the only thing we do, but it pays bills. So I'm not going to be bashing red teaming, but I will say this. I think that it gets a little too much emphasis in the industry. And if you've gone to other hacker conferences, you'll see this in the number of talks and tracks that happen. What I feel is important to start doing is to having the red team and blue team working together. Make a purple team. When was the last time you had a pen test where the pen testers were physically sitting in your SOC and saying, hey, SOC, I'm about to send some attacks downstream. Can you see this attack? Now, if you're doing that, hey, pat yourself on the back. That's great. But if you're not, start asking why not. If your pen test company feels like they don't want to or aren't able to provide that level of transparency, you might want to start asking questions of them. Now, we're going to go over a couple tools today. Please get written permission for doing this stuff. Please, please, please. Love America, USA, USA, all that stuff. But one of the things that really stinks about America is that you're looking at potentially a 20-year jail term if you get caught or busted for hacking. And that's quite ridiculous, I think. So nobody looks good in an orange jumpsuit. Always get your written permission. Now, this is a 101 level talk. It was in the title. I do train different skill levels, so I'm sure some of you guys that are like, oh, what's the super elite stuff? We're not going to get into that too much. And we're going to focus a bit on basics. And one of the reasons why we do that is time and time again, when we do penetration tests at Black Hills InfoSec, it's the easy stuff that people trip up on. They were missing a patch, or their network segmentation wasn't set up correctly. Or, my favorite, Daryl Highland was the closing keynote yesterday, and he talked about, printer attacks. That's alive and well. We did that not too long ago at where I work. We pivoted through printers. About a month ago, we completely destroyed a manufacturing company. I mean, we didn't actually destroy them, but we bypassed all their protections because we used their VoIP network as the attack platform. And so it's easy stuff that people, forget to do. And how easy? It's shockingly easy. Those of you who have ever, show of hands, how many people have ever set up a Cisco VoIP environment? Okay, a couple hands. Okay, cool. Now, I don't know when you set yours up. When I set up the last one that I did, there were 3 PDFs that you had to read. There was setting up your VoIP. Then there was the second one, which was configuring your VoIP setup to fit your environment. And then there was the third one, how to secure your VoIP infrastructure. And unfortunately, and I hear the chuckles, you guys know exactly where this goes. Everybody gets through one, and they're like, okay, cool, we can call. All right, let's configure it. We got our network. And then they're like, cool, now it's set up. We can make calls. Our extensions are good. Miller time. And they never read that third lonely document. And that's really unfortunate. I don't know. It's really sad that I've seen organizations that are still vulnerable to attacks that are 5, 10 years old. And Adrian and I were chatting last night after the conference was over, and a lady that knew Adrian came over, and we were talking about, do you guys always get in as pen testers? And the answer is, yeah. Because the larger the organization, the easier a target it is. If you're a small shop, hey, cool, but I'll tell you what, you have some disadvantages there, and that's usually a lack of resources. But larger organizations, the surface area is just immense when you think about it. So understand, attacking is easy, and you should be doing this yourself. Now, there are ways that you can win. I'm not here to spread FUD, doom and gloom. What you need to do is keep focus on this. People, process, technology in that order. All too often we have people that are trying to buy their way out of the problem by buying a compliance appliance. And they're just going to plug it in line and all problems go away. And I'm not saying that, don't buy vendor products. Please, understand that. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that if you think technology is the solution to your problem, you're probably not understanding the technology correctly, and you're definitely not getting the problem or understanding it right. And that was a bad paraphrase of Bruce Schneier. So always remember people, process, and technology. Let's talk about doing an honest self-assessment on people. A lot of people, and I hope I don't insult you on this, but a lot of people in InfoSec don't understand what it is to use munitions-grade software. You just don't. It's not your fault, it's just that you haven't had an opportunity to play with that. Have you played with weapons-grade software? If you haven't, you need to get your hands on that quickly. I'm going to show you a couple tools that you can use to do that. If you have not played with attack-grade software, this is the training you got. You would not expect soldiers going through basic training to be given pop guns. Or if they did, you wouldn't expect them to do terribly good or fare terribly well in their first live firefight. And yet, that's what all too often we have people doing. They don't understand the tech. They don't understand how things are going. And I'm here to tell you that even though the attack tools are a little arcane in some instances, they're not terribly challenging to use. I mean, the fact is, if you read the documentation, watch some YouTube videos, there's a good probability that you're going to be able to have most attack tools running, in a half day. And what I want you to do is start cultivating that. I'm not going to make you guys do the warrior pose, but that was, for internet folks who aren't seeing this video or in context, the keynote on day one, the guy had folks do warrior pose, which was kind of cool because he was kind of getting people fired up. Hey, let's cultivate that warrior attitude about it. And I think that we need to take that approach. And so what I like to do when I'm thinking, hey, how do I get pumped up? I start thinking about Hawk with a knife. Start cultivating that side of yourself. You can be this, Hawk knife-wielding person. And the point is, you need to level up. If you don't have the abilities, just go out and get them. I'm not expecting you to be, like presenting at DEF CON or Black Hat or conferences like that. But what I am hoping is that you at least have familiarity with how these attacks work. It's really sad. When I was a developer, one of the things that actually pushed me officially into going security full-time was I had a bit of software attacked as part of a pen test. And it was a slaughter because I didn't know about input sanitization. I didn't know about output encoding. And what was really frustrating is the security person, when they said, hey, Mick, your code, big problems. I was like, oh, no, that's horrible. They said, yeah, you got to do input sanitization. I was like, cool. How? And they were like, yeah, well, they sanitize the inputs. And I was like, gee, awesome, thank you. All too often, we have a gap of theory and practice. You need to start closing that gap. Now, I'm not trying to do this to embarrass anyone, and I expect every hand to be up on this first question. How many people have heard the term buffer overflow? All right, keep your hand up if you've actually exploited a buffer overflow. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You need to understand what these are, how they work. We've known about buffer overflow since 1971. That's horrible. I don't have a whole lot of hope for the industry if we keep on having this real, loosey-goosey, wishy understanding of, yeah, buffer overflow bad. Oh, well, what's it look like when you run it? Yeah, the buffers overflow. So, this talk is aimed at a couple different groups, okay? And I'm going to just rip through this. One thing, I want managers, senior managers, to be watching this. Hi, managers. I hope that you are. If your CTO, CSO, executives haven't seen attacks run in the real world, you're doing them a disservice. One of the things that I hope you do with this slide deck once I upload it is that you copy some of the commands and you can make very quick and easy to run demos in front of your executive team. If you want to spice it up or do a little additional off-roading with those demos, feel free to hit me up. I'll have my contact information up there again. But one of the things that I see time and time again at Black Hills InfoSec is when we start talking with executives, we say, hey, we're going to do this attack, and immediately just kind of glaze over, and they're thinking, hacker bad, I'm going to get hosed, and that's the end of it. Show them what the attacks look like. Also, side note, and I shouldn't be saying this on mic, but one of these times I'm tempted to actually do a fake entry to the Central Ohio ISSA and make a GRC talk. and then like show up and be like, this is Metasploit. I don't know how well that would be received, but it would be interesting to do. Now, also rookies. You know, this talk is aimed at rookies. A lot of folks are getting up in the industry. It's real awesome. Hey, you know, welcome to the party. You know, and by rookie, I mean somebody who hasn't run these attack tools. This is aimed for kind of lowering the learning curve on these tools. It's not that bad. This is also at experienced folks. I have a lot of people that will say, you know, oh, we ran the pen test and the attack happened and we gave the findings and they didn't implement anything. And we did it again and again and again and, you know, they just don't care about security. Well, I got bad news. The problem isn't with that company. It isn't with that group. It isn't with that line of business. The problem is with you. If you're one of the grumpy old-timers that are saying the same thing over and over again, you're not finding the right lever to hit. So figure out what that is. So let's start talking pen test voodoo. All right, a lot of pen testers think that they're the rock stars in the IT security world. And, you know, I'm not going to lie, there are some really deeply skilled ninjas out there, but it almost seems like as soon as you get like that pen test check mark on your resume, you're like walking around with a swagger, and, you know, that's kind of goofy. I don't think that they're any different than you or I. And a lot of them think their job is to just like blow up the network and say, this is broke, this is broke, this is broke, I'm out. And, you know, that's the report. And show of hands, how many people have gotten reports like that where they don't even give you good guidance on like how to improve? That really stinks. I've been a business owner at a financial institution and I got a report like that and I almost flipped the table over. What we should be doing as an industry is a bit different than this. How many people have gone panning for gold? Okay, a couple hands. Would you say it was the most exciting afternoon you spent? No, it's super tedious. One of the things that I like about the panning for gold analogy and why we need to be doing this is that it's easy to do. It's really not hard to put a scoop full of dirt with some water, swirl it around, and then you get gold flakes. It's tedious. Pen testing's tedious. It's fun, to be sure, when you're done with the pen test because you collect your shells, you have all of the exploit stuff. So is panning for gold. At the end of the day, you know, hopefully you've got, you know, a couple ounces of gold or at least something to show for your work. So celebrate the, you know, collection of gold that you get, but understand there's a lot of work that goes behind it. Now, how much work goes into it? A lot. It is very monotonous and tedious to do this work well. You're going to be doing a lot of effort in getting recon set up well. In fact, if you, in my opinion, if you're doing reconnaissance right, you should probably be spending like almost as much as 2/3 of your time of the engagement doing reconnaissance. It's pretty fun when you do it well because when you do the reconnaissance right, you can, like when the time starts, you will have the username and password and you're just connecting in via VPN if you've done recon right. If you want to see that, due to lack of time, I had to cut a lab or a demo for a tool called ReconNG. It was made by Tim Tomes, super sharp guy. Do a check on Adrian's site on irongeek.com. Look for ReconNG. There's a couple different talks on it. And in it, he does one where he shows through various disclosure or breach notification lists the usernames and passwords. Now, it doesn't happen fairly often, but if we get lucky at Black Hills and find default creds or some credentials that have been released, when the, you know, go time occurs, we could potentially be already in your network with under, you know, 4 minutes. So that's fun for us, not so fun for the client, but understand that recon is incredibly tedious, but it pays off huge dividends. So, you know, understand monotony. And I don't want to harp on this too much because it's starting to get monotonous. So now, some dirty secrets about attacking and pen testing. So it's not hard to attack a network. It's really, really simple. All you need to do is just start configuring a couple tools, hit go, and fire packets at it. I'm not asking you guys to be super elite. It's okay even if you don't understand what the tool's actually doing. Now, make sure you do it in a non-production environment until you do understand how the tool really works. But it's very easy to send packets downrange and get a response. And then based off of that response, you can start tailoring and tuning the attacks that you're going to send as a follow-up. It's not hard. In fact, there's a little bit of a joke that I have with some of the folks at Black Hills where you call it hacking by numbers, because it's not technically difficult. It's tedious, it takes time, but you can get it done. And it's not difficult to get domain admin. It's not difficult to get root. It's not difficult to get the Oracle password. It's not difficult to get the enable password. And here's another thing. You don't even have to necessarily get that level of access in order to cause huge amount of pain in an environment. Pen testers, okay? Here's a question for you. If you are able to get into a domain, what's something that you could do without having to be local admin or domain admin? Scan hosts? That's not going to give me like some real juicy data, though. List all users. Hey, here you go. Congratulations. All right. Oh, somebody's going to get a waterlogged book. So listing all users is awesome, because now I as an attacker could do a variety of attacks with that. One of my personal favorites is to do a thing called password sprays. Most people watch for account lockouts when I try to brute force an account. Well, if you haven't heard about password sprays, this is fun. All you need to do is have a list of the different users in a domain and then get one password and rip through that entire list. Can you see that happen in your environment? Precious few can. And what's really magical about this is if I have enough time on my assessment, I'll actually do this, every 3 or 4 days, because people will log in and reset the bad password count. If you have a decent-sized organization, I guarantee you I'm going to be able to get access into your system using a password like Spring 2015. Or, here in Columbus, something like Go Bucks Go. It just works. So be on the lookout for things like that. It's really like slight twists. We always hear, we got to protect the domain accounts, but we don't think about the things that are low-hanging fruit that attackers can use to really scary effect. Another one that I love to do, and it's tedious, it takes a lot of time, is scanning your entire domain for network shares that are open. Look through SharePoint. See what network diagrams are in your SharePoint instance. That's awesome as a pen tester when I get one of those, because you're giving me the map to your entire environment. Often I'll see username passwords or configuration files with the username and password hard-coded. It's shocking how good it is to get the data that is, what you need. And exfiltrating data is, okay, I'm not even going to ask, but if anybody is a vendor in DLP and that's your whole business, please see me after the talk, because we really need to talk. Honestly, I have never been on a pen test where there's been DLP, and I've never heard of an attacker that's able to bypass the firewall, bypass the IDS and IPS, able to go past the host-based intrusion prevention system, and they're about to get the data off, and then they go, oh, DLP. It doesn't happen, folks. DLP serves a purpose. It does serve a purpose. And that purpose is keeping accidental disclosure of information from happening. That's great. That's awesome. But DLP does not stop a dedicated attacker. It never has. It never will. And if you think I'm wrong, just come up after the talk, and I'll be delighted to give you plenty of ideas on how to evade that. So, I want you guys to be testing your systems. I want you to be attacking your systems. You're probably not going to be super skilled at it at first. That's okay. But you need to start attacking the systems. And you're probably thinking, who, me? Yes, you. You need to start attacking your systems. Work with your red team if you have that so that you understand how the tools work. Reach out to folks. Watch Adrian's videos to see how you can do this. But, you know, if you don't attack your systems, somebody else will. And one of the things I want you guys to start thinking about is, what is the motivation of the attackers? A lot of people, you know, when they're building their defense, it almost seems like they're defending against regulators. They're getting that checkbox. They're defending against lawyers. They're getting a reasonable level of defense. Well, you know what? That's great. But be honest with yourself. Be honest with how you're setting up your environment if that's what you're going for. You need to start thinking about like targeted attacks and how you would detect them. Now, show of hands. How many people read the Verizon Data Breach Report when it comes out every year? Okay, that's a lot, but that's not everyone. Homework for you. Verizon Data Breach Report. 2014 is the most recent year. 2015 should be coming out fairly soon. The Verizon Data Breach Report is an amazing resource. You need to read this. I hear over and over again people say we're not getting appropriate funding for our program. You know what? This is probably the best ammunition that you can have. It's also, no lie, one of the most depressing things you will ever read, ever. And here's, like, this is actually copied, like, verbatim from the Verizon Data Breach Report, okay? I'm going to show you the graph of discovery methods for financially targeted attacks against web applications. And what you see here is total external, 88%. Total internal is 12%. You actually have to get down to internal IT audit before you only find 4% that get anything. Are there any auditors here in this? All right, honestly, thank you for showing up. You guys are really the only ones who are doing effective defense. That's what this graph shows. Honestly, as brutal as it sounds, it might be better to take all of our spending on IDS, IPS, firewall, antivirus, put it in a big old pile, light that thing on fire, maybe roast some marshmallows, and call it a corporate bonding event, because you'll at least save yourself the time and blood and late nights that we've been spending on that same pile of money. We are getting curb stomped by the competition, and the competition is the bad guys. You know, one of the things in the keynote on Monday, was, you know, nation states are coming after us. And to be sure, there are. You guys might not be the target of nation states, but I guarantee you that you're the target of organized crime units. And you need to be mindful of this. So this is horrible stuff. Okay, not depressed yet? Let's talk about cadence and speed. Later on in the report, there's a graph that looks a little something like this. And what these different charts show are the phases of an attack. You've got compromise, you've got data exfiltration, and discovery. Just to keep things moving along, I'm only going to talk about compromise and discovery. And this line right here is seconds, this is minutes, this is hours, this is days. And so 95% of the attacks occur within a cadence of days or weeks. And yet, we're only catching slightly more than half of them in the weeks and months. That's horrible. A lot of people talk about bonbon security. Hard, crunchy outer shell, soft, gooey middle. Well, guess what? Your middle is a lot more pervasive than you think. There's a reason that people send phish emails into your organization, because if you click that link, if your coworker or client or whoever clicks that link, congratulations. Your perimeter now is that desktop. So be aware, bonbon security is a real big issue. Now, audience participation point coming up here. 10 years ago, if I asked you, how would you defend a network? What would be a tool that you would throw out to defend a network? Firewall, yeah, okay. What would you use to defend the endpoints? Antivirus, okay, cool. Let's say, what would you do nowadays to defend the network? Firewall, I hear a couple things, IDS. What do we do to defend the host nowadays? Antivirus, it's the same thing. How's that working out? Not terribly well. Definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. What the heck, guys? Now, here, it all boils down to this formula. This is from a book, and I'm sorry if this is a review from a talk that I gave a little bit ago, but there's a formula that's important that everybody understand. And this comes from a book called Time-Based Security by Win Schwartau. And the formula is this: attack time, some question mark, versus your detect time and your response time. So if the attacker's attack time is less than your ability to detect and respond, they're going to win. If your response and detect time is less than the attacker time, you win. It's that simple. And you need to start using this formula to evaluate your tools that you buy, your processes and techniques, because it makes it vendor neutral, it makes it process neutral, and it allows you to very simply and easily and in a very quantifiable way determine what's working and how it works. So, when I said defending the desktop, everybody said antivirus. All right. How effective is antivirus? How many people think antivirus is 100% effective? No? All right. 80% effective. All right. Do I hear 60% effective? Okay. How about 40% effective? 20% effective? Okay. How many people think it's 0% effective? 3 to 5, 0, pretty close. Okay, let me show you this. This is something that you can copy exactly. There's a tool out there called MSF Venom. It is a tool that comes with Metasploit. Installing Metasploit is kind of tricky. Just go download the Kali Linux distribution. You run Kali, and you type in something like this, and this will create your own bit of malware. And what's interesting is, I just ran this. There's no encoding, there's no trickeration at all in this, and I uploaded it to VirusTotal. VirusTotal, for those of you who don't know, is a place online that you can put suspect files, and it will scan against different antivirus engines. And a plain vanilla, as catchable as it can, 37 of the 57 caught it. That's horrible. When was the last time you checked your antivirus against the actual malware? You need to start doing it. Another one that I want to talk about is veil evasion. Veil is a very powerful framework that allows you to create custom malware. It allows you to create custom executables, and I'm going to tell you this also makes an amazing demo to the executives because it's real easy to use. So once you get it installed, it works a little like this. Oh, hold on, just bear with me for a moment. I got to unlock this machine before I fix my displays. All right, so that's not working. Let's try this. Okay, we'll do this. I'll just slide it over. Close enough. Okay, so the way you work Veil is very simple. I mean, it's a command line tool. You simply run it, and it will walk you through how to actually create this executable that you will run in an environment. So you can simply start off by saying list, and it will tell you all these different payloads. The payloads are what happens when somebody clicks this executable in your environment. What I would encourage you to do is look around and check ones online if you've got questions on which ones work better than others. I personally love some of the reverse payloads. What this rev means is that the victim system will phone home. Firewalls work both ways, folks. Many people are concerned about the attacker coming in from the internet. Nobody thinks about the malware phoning home. If you don't have good egress protections, these things will work very, very well. All you need to do with Veil is simply pick the numbers that you want to use, hit enter, and it will guide you through the actual items that you need to do. So here's L port. This stands for listening, or local port that you're listening to. Thank you. Our host is the system that is listening, the listen target address. You simply walk these through, enter the command, type generate. It will build you your executable, move that executable, send an email, do whatever you want, and you're off to the races. It's super simple. So let's get back to the presentation. All right. We all hear time and time again about attackers' advantage. Attackers really only need one way into our network. Oh, that sucks. And to be sure, it does. I'm not going to lie. But there's plenty of advantages that we as defenders have that we don't take full advantage of. What are some of those that you have? You know your network. Hot diggity. Get this guy Yes, you know your network. You absolutely positively must know your network. If you don't know your network, you haven't got a hope. As a matter of fact, a lot of people will say, hey, you know, finding attack traffic is a little bit like finding a needle in a haystack. And I say no. That's not what it's like. It's like finding a needle in a stack of needles. You have to know what normal is, or else you have no shot. I'd recommend that you check out the Blue Team Handbook. This book is awesome. It's a very quick read. It will give you that very quick skills uplift that you're after. There are some SANS courses that you could take. Be fully honest, conflict of self-interests, but you should check those out. I want to give you spend a bit of our remaining time talking about PowerCat. PowerCat is a tool that I wrote and an intern at Black Hills, Luke Baggett, wrote. PowerCat brings Netcat into PowerShell. For those of you who aren't familiar with what Netcat is, it allows you to both send and receive data on arbitrary ports. This is really powerful when used well. So here's what PowerCat allows. As an attacker, I actually don't like firewalls. Firewalls can be an effective defensive posture. And so if I need to start having some level of interaction with them, I might need to start having that malware phone home. PowerCat is a very lightweight way of testing this out and building this. PowerCat also allows for pivoting. And what's happening here is on this system, PowerCat is running, and it allows the attacker to relay or proxy their attack traffic to another system that they normally wouldn't even be able to reach at all. That's just some of the light features of PowerCat. Let's see it in action. Okay, where's this? Okay, bear with me just a second. Okay, so this is a Windows system. Whoops, where did I even type that? All right, so to use PowerCat, you need to simply import the PowerCat module. And so it's import module, PowerCat. And this is the file that I'm importing. And now PowerCat is loaded into the local memory. And I can simply type PowerCat-H, and this gives you the help. Luke and I spent a good amount of time trying to make this a fairly easy-to-use tool. We give you examples, and I'm actually going to just run through some of the examples right now. Note, this is important for those of you who haven't played with a tool like this. Make sure you get the IP addresses right. These may or may not be your actual IP addresses. So, if I wanted to send command, this is an interesting one here, folks. This is one that allows me, as an attacker, to send cmd.exe to a remote system, and this is a great way of evading firewalls. So what you could do is, on an attack system, you set up a listener, Oh man, this is not going well. Let me, oh, demos. Always a problem. There we go. Alright, so I simply type this, netcat, listen, and then let's do port. Whoops, got a typo there. Set up a listener on port 9000. So now basically I've got a service listening on this port, and all I need to do is interact with that remote service. So now if I go to my Windows system, I can simply PowerCat as a client and then in this case it's 192.168.209.130 and then, oops, got a little extra there. And I say execute CMD. Now I hit enter, whoops, and we've got friendly error messages too. So now it just sits there and hangs. But if we go over to the other system, look, I now have cmd.exe, and so now I have regular command shell access on that remote system. This is scary stuff because now the attacker is effectively remoted into the system. So that's pretty scary. But in the remaining time that I have, we're going to take this one step worse. So let's say that we've got an attacker system where, let me do this, exit out of this, and it drops me back to my normal Unix system. So let's say I'm going to set up a listener on port 9000 on this system. So I'm waiting for a connection. And now on my Windows system, I'm going to set up what's called a relay, and that's that pivot diagram that we just saw. And again, I'm going to use the use this as my base here, this particular one. So I'm going to set up a listener, a local listener, on port 8000. And I'm going to redirect it, that's what that R is, over TCP 192.168.209.130 on port 9000, and it simply sits. Now what I need to do is, as an attacker from a different system, I can very easily, whoops. Oh, demo fails. Always fun. We're going to allow access. There's a way around this. That's beyond the scope of this. Oh, you know what? We're running out of time. So that should hopefully be working. So now from the other system, let me get the IP of this one. 151. Okay. So now, let's say I've got another command. I would simply netcat into that. Port. Okay, so now I didn't send exe. Thank you. So, but watch this. In this screen, let's say this is the victim system, and this terminal right here is my attack system. So now, when I type hi, what should happen, oh no, demo fail. I'll have to get this set up. Sorry. 8000? Let's see here, 9000. Oh yes, thank you, port 8000. Sorry about that. Okay, and this should work, please. Fingers crossed, I'm running out of time. Oh, not working. Oh well. we'll fix it and it'll work, but demo fail. But hey, at least I got shirts and books, so yay that. Oh boy. Sorry about that, gang. So play around with PowerCat. It's worth playing with. One thing that I wanted you to end with is a little bit of hope. Simplify your environment. Understand what's normal. Know your systems. Remember that formula. Also remember people, process, technology. I know I bashed a little bit of the vendors. I'm sorry if you feel bad. Don't know what to say. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And if you got any questions, here's how you can best hit me. But I'm out of slides and out of time. So feel free to contact me, and I've got the books and shirts up here. So thank you.